Have you ever wondered how Seven came to be? This cult classic was, in truth, the product of deep depression and crushing disappointment. Andrew Kevin Walker, a graduate of Penn State University's film program, spent years struggling to break into the industry, only to have every door shut in his face. To make ends meet, he began selling records at a Tower Records store in New York. In those days, Walker despised his life and was sinking under the weight of a severe depression. It was this very darkness that drove him to his pen. The grim story built upon the 7 deadly sins became an escape, a place where Walker could pour his inner world directly onto paper. Walker sent his screenplay to professional screenwriter David Coeb, hoping for some kind of response. Coeb's reaction was rather striking. You need professional help. This was not a criticism, but rather an expression of admiration for how disturbingly accomplished the script was. Coeb loved the screenplay and wasted no time forwarding it to his own agent. And so, a dark story born from the depression of a record store clerk began its journey to Hollywood.
That depending on luck.
However, bringing the film to life required a director. The first offer went to Guillermo del Toro, but the master filmmaker found the story far too bleak and declined. As the search continued, David Fincher appeared on the horizon. Eager to prove himself after the failure of Alien 3, Fincher was particularly struck by the ending when he read the script. Here was a finale that shattered every convention of the genre. It was at this very moment that the lucky accident which would alter cinema history occurred. The studio had in fact prepared a softened version of the screenplay and intended to send it to Fincher. However, through a mix-up, Walker's original and uncompromising text was delivered to the director instead. Upon reading the original ending, Fincher informed the studio that he would only direct the screenplay containing this finale. Though the studio initially accepted Fincher's terms, the reactions from test screenings prompted them to push for changing the ending once more.
The test screenings were 50-50, like some people really liked it, but 50% really hated it and said that we were damned to hell for making it and stuff like that. So we knew we were on to something.
The man who put an end to all these disputes was Brad Pitt.
I'm all over it.
When the star accepted the role, he had a special clause inserted into his contract, stipulating that the original ending could never be altered and that his character would personally shoot the killer. Pitt drew his line in the sand. No clause, no me. Producer Arnold Carpelson continued to oppose this ending throughout the shoot, yet thanks to the signed contract, one of the most iconic finales in cinema history was preserved. With the director's chair filled, the time had come to assemble the cast. The first offer for Detective Mills went to Denzel Washington, but the celebrated actor declined. Christina Applegate's name was raised for Tracy, though she too chose not to join the project. For Somerset, the legendary Al Pacino was being considered.
Okay.
And John Doe? The most surprising candidate for this role was not even an actor. Michael Stipe, lead singer of R.E.M., was the first name entertained for this dark character. Ultimately, none of these names came to fruition, and perhaps that was for the best.
You're looking for me.
A mere 2 days before shooting commenced, Kevin Spacey received a call on a Friday for the role of John Doe and took his place on set by Tuesday. Despite such remarkably limited preparation time, he brought to life one of the most iconic and chilling villains in cinema history. Yet Spacey's greatest contribution to this film extended well beyond his performance alone. In order to preserve the character's mystique and his devastating impact on the audience until the very last moment, he personally requested that his name be omitted from the opening credits and all promotional materials. Though the studio initially resisted this extraordinary demand, both Fincher and Spacey refused to yield. Keeping the killer's identity hidden from the audience was vital to the explosive power of the finale. Spacey's name appeared on not a single poster or trailer. The concealment of Kevin Spacey's name elevated the opening credits to one of the film's most essential elements, and the story behind this sequence proved every bit as compelling as the film itself.
Jesus Christ. The fuck is this?
I'd like to speak to my lawyer, please.
Fincher had originally planned to open with a different scene, but when the time came to present a rough cut to the studio, he found himself in need of a temporary opening and turned to Kyle Cooper for assistance. Cooper assembled a haunting sequence drawn from John Doe's journals, set to the music of Nine Inch Nails. Without employing a single computer effect, the piece was crafted entirely by hand using real strands of hair, razor blades, and needles. What had been conceived as a mere placeholder was ultimately hailed by the New York Times as a landmark in cinema history. A subtle detail within the credits revealed why the killer never left a single fingerprint. John Doe was cutting off his own fingertips.
He cuts the skin off the tips of his fingers. That's why we couldn't find one single usable print in his apartment.
The film's unsettling atmosphere persisted through the closing credits as well. Defying convention, the text scrolled downward rather than upward, sustaining the viewer's sense of unease until the very last frame. Yet, Seven's celebrated visual aesthetic was hardly confined to these graphic achievements alone. The dark texture permeating the entire film was, in reality, the product of ingenious practicality. Contrary to common assumption, the relentless rain in nearly every scene served a purpose beyond mere atmosphere. The true reason lay in the constraints of the production schedule. Brad Pitt's availability was limited to just 55 days, and time was exceedingly precious. To ensure that real rainfall would not halt production, the majority of exterior scenes were pre-planned with artificial rain. This way, even if genuine rain arrived, it would create no visible discrepancy, and shooting could proceed without interruption. That pale, dark, and depressive texture was no accident either. During post-production, a specialized chemical process known as bleach bypass was employed. By preserving 75% of the silver in the film negative, the image became grainier, darker, and more deeply shadowed. Whether you noticed it or not, throughout the entire story, the name of the city where events unfold is never once uttered. Characters refer only to the city or here in their dialogue, offering no concrete clue as to its identity. Every detail, from costumes to production design, was meticulously crafted to render time and place deliberately ambiguous. Though a modern era is implied, no definitive date or location is ever provided. Seven exists both everywhere and nowhere at once. The film's nameless and unsettling atmosphere took on an even more harrowing dimension through a real accident that occurred during shooting. In the now famous chase scene, Brad Pitt slipped and fell onto a car windshield, his arm plunging through the glass. With tendons severed down to the bone, production was forced to halt, yet the actor refused to surrender and completed the remaining scenes with his arm in a cast. A mandatory revision to the screenplay followed, and Mill's injury was incorporated into the narrative. For the Sloth victim, the production team embarked on a search for an actor meeting highly specific criteria. After locating a performer who could remain motionless for extended periods and weighed a mere 97 pounds, achieving that horrifying appearance demanded a full 14-hour makeup marathon. The SWAT team on set was so thoroughly convinced that the figure lying in the bed was an inanimate mannequin that they behaved accordingly during filming. Yet when the figure suddenly coughed, their stunned reaction was the genuine reflection of real terror. A raw sense of realism pervaded the film's other scenes as well. During the gluttony sequence, 7 crates of live cockroaches were emptied onto the actor. Though the performer's ears and nostrils were shielded with plugs, the fact that at least one cockroach still managed to infiltrate his underwear attested to just how disturbing the scene truly was. Leland Orser, in the last scene, exhibited a devotion that tested the very boundaries of method acting, remaining awake for a full 2 days and consuming endless amounts of coffee to fray his nerves. Orser collapsed from sheer exhaustion after the 40th take, under crushing emotional strain. His body was unable to endure any further.
Oh God, oh God, oh God, he had a gun in my mouth! The fucking gun was in my throat!
Morgan Freeman's mastery, meanwhile, revealed itself in a striking technical moment. In the knife-throwing scene originally planned as 2 separate shots, Freeman drove the unsteady blade into the target with unerring precision, take after take, completing the entire scene in a single effort and leaving the crew astonished. One of the film's most haunting details, John Doe's journals transcended their function as mere props, painstakingly handwritten by the production team over the course of 2 months, then torn apart and baked to simulate age. These hundreds of pages added $15,000 to the film's budget, yet made the viewer feel John Doe's diseased psyche deep in their bones on every single page. SE7EN is a film brimming with details, and most of them escape notice on a first viewing. Consider Mills's apartment number, 5A. The sin Mills embodies is wrath. Wrath holds the 5th position among the 7 deadly sins. From building door numbers to the cargo delivery time, the number 7 is concealed throughout the film on multiple occasions. The cargo arrives at 7 p.m.
This guy paid me $500 to bring it out here, man. He said he wanted it here at exactly 7 o'clock.
As the film nears its conclusion, 3 characters share a car heading toward the unknown. Somerset drives, Mills rides beside him, and John Doe sits in the back, hands cuffed behind him, a killer being escorted by 2 detectives. Everything suggests Doe is the one being led, but the one walking into the trap is not Doe, it is Mills. For all the brutality 7 imprints upon its viewers, the film presents only a single direct killing on screen, the final scene in which Mills shoots John Doe. Every other death has already transpired long before the detectives arrive, and the film's focus rests not on the act itself, but on the bodies left behind and the dark tableau they compose. Yet a great many viewers remain utterly convinced they witnessed every detail with their own eyes. Much like the legendary shower scene in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, SE7EN compels its audience to complete in their own minds scenes that were never actually shown on screen. Indeed, following the film, numerous viewers have insisted that Gwyneth Paltrow's severed head was displayed in full graphic detail. No such scene ever existed. David Fincher attributes this phenomenon to the sheer power of the screenplay, one capable of igniting the audience's imagination without the need for any visual evidence. The final scene was filmed beneath towering power lines, and the location itself presented a curious technical obstacle that defied the production. The high-voltage lines severed all radio communication on set, forcing David Fincher to resort to cell phones in order to direct actors during certain scenes. Moreover, the severely compressed shooting schedule meant that in white shots, body doubles stood in for Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and Kevin Spacey. After this entire grueling ordeal, Seven arrived in theaters. That screenplay, born from a record store clerk's darkest depression, attained its cult status through a text accidentally delivered to the wrong hands, clauses stubbornly embedded in contracts, and a final scene that faced attempts at alteration at every single stage.